healing the body doesn't have to be a diet or a huge undertaking. Healing the body can be something as simple as not having processed food or incorporating some elements of stuff. Eating healthy is eating healthy. As stupid as that sounds, what I mean by that is that eating in your self-interest is not a diet and is not eating healthy. It shouldn't be a weird thing. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm not into that.
Right.
Eating healthy is just taking care of yourself. And taking care of yourself should always be a priority, regardless that exercise is boring or that it has to be boring in order to be functional, in order to be useful. Eating in your self-interest is not a diet and is not eating health. It shouldn't be a weird thing. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm not into that.
Right.
Eating healthy is just taking care of yourself. And taking care of yourself should always be a priority, regardless.
Welcome to What the F is Wrong with Our Health. This is a show podcast that cuts through the BS of our modern medical system, our toxic lifestyles, and our mindset that's a bit antiquated and is keeping us sick. And I've been a doctor in regenerative medicine now for over 20 years after leaving traditional medicine. I'm kind of a rebel to help people transform their health, their lives, and their outlooks. And in today's show, I'm really excited to introduce Anthony Moreno. He's a Renaissance man of sorts, as you're going to learn. There he is with that cool cap. And Anthony himself is a personal trainer, entrepreneur, owner of boutique personal training based out of New York. And he's an author of 2 books. One of them is called I Run a Business, Not Marathons. And as you can see from his cap, Fitness Sucks. I love that title, Anthony. And so, Anthony, I'll just jump into it because I know you have an interesting background. You were born in Gibraltar. And how does someone from Gibraltar end up in gyms and teaching people about fitness?
Well, the way that I ended up in gyms was almost kind of like destiny, because I started, all my jobs that I've ever done are physical, everything. I was a lifeguard, I was a security guard, I did martial arts, I taught, I was in the army for 4 years, I was in the Air Force as a fireman for 4 years. So when I came to America, I decided I was going to take one of 2 paths. I was either going to be a personal trainer because fitness was my passion, or I was going to become a UFC fighter, and I was really going to try and go for it. But UFC fighting gets you punched in the face and doesn't get you paid very much. Personal training gets you not punched in the face and you get to make money. And that's how I ended up being a trainer. And then after years of working for other people and making money for other people, I decided I was probably better off making money for myself and like opening my own things, which comes with its own challenges because entrepreneurial stuff is not fun and it's not easy. But here we are. That's the abbreviated version. And if you want to know how I came to America, I came over here to marry the love of my life, who is no longer the love of my life. That's my ex-wife. Now I have a new love of my life.
I see.
My lovely wife, Megan, who hopefully she doesn't leave me, because if she left me, then I'd find another love of my life. But she won't leave me and I'm not going to leave her. We're very happily married for 2 years now. So that's how I came over to America.
And isn't it true, Anthony, that as entrepreneurs, we, our second love of our life has to be what we do and the passion.
Oh yeah.
And so I want to know then, what was the influence in your youth that made you want to go into fitness and health, from that perspective?
Without diving too much into traumatic past, I didn't have a fantastic upbringing. So I used to get bullied a lot and all that stuff. So that's how I got into martial arts and fighting and all this. And also, I was very much like an active kid. I didn't want to be home. So anything that I could do to be outside, I did, right? So a lot of sports and a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, breaking into cars, stealing things, normal kid stuff. But it was a lot of physicality, and running away from the police is a strong motivator to get in shape. I'm joking. It wasn't that bad. I'm making it seem like I'm a felon here. It's not that serious. But it was a tough upbringing, which kind of made me do a lot of physical stuff outside of home. So that's how I think naturally, just eventually, just anything that became physical was like exciting for me, and I was drawn to that.
Absolutely. And And because you mentioned and I read that you were in the armed forces, both the Army and the Air Force, um, how did that help mold you even further into this direction?
The Army, it was 4 years reserve as a soldier, and then the Air Force was as a fireman. And basically, anybody who has been in the Army or Air Force or any of the services, you have to develop some form of discipline if you want to continue to do it, and you learn a lot through it. So all of that kind of molded me more into the sort of going from like a rebellious teen to a disciplined adult to some degree.
Right.
I know for a lot of people that's not the case, especially people who actually have to go and fight often wars, which thank goodness, touch wood, I never did get deployed, and hopefully I never do. But that structure, that discipline, that was maybe what I was lacking as a child and as a teen. It reinforced those practices into me, and then that kind of helped me with everything else in life. So that molded me in that direction.
No, absolutely. And so, which came first, the the opening of these gyms, or I guess I want to know the process in terms of the nuts and bolts of how you got to opening your first gym, and is that what influenced the book, or was it vice versa, where you came up with this concept of fitness sucks and said, you know what, I'm going to open up a gym and educate people and enlighten them on the benefits.
It was definitely the opening the gym first. Through the gym, through working with people and through learning about people, I had to sort of come to some conclusion. The conclusion was that fitness sucks, and doesn't matter how you spin it. That doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing, but fitness does suck, and it sucks for a lot of people. It's not something that you want to consciously, purposely do. The human body is designed to be lazy. We're not designed to. I mean, we're designed to move, but we're also designed to conserve energy. So when choosing one or the other, you're going to choose to conserve energy, whether that be mental or physical, even emotional or psychological, arguably. But as far as I've noticed, fitness in itself is a hard sell, and a lot of people don't like it. And I think that they don't like it in the same way that I didn't like school. It's not that you don't like learning, you don't like the systems and the processes that are put in place. I think that the same applies for the medical field and people who have issues with the medical field where they're like, I don't like doctors or I don't like dentists. And I don't think that you don't like a doctor. You want to be in good health. You want someone who can help you. You just don't like what is currently being presented in the way that it's being presented, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Right.
So
And that's
I know I digressed. I'm sorry. I went
no,
off
no,
on a
no, no.
tangent.
Go ahead. Continue.
The
Continue.
the answer is the gym came first, and from my learning from working with people one on one, I came to the conclusion that fitness sucks, and that I was asked the same questions, same issues, and putting it into a book just made sense so that it was better reach to more people than just like a one on one conversation.
Right. And it's interesting because this is where you and I absolutely connect, Anthony. Well, on various points, but this in particular because, like you're saying, it's our innate nature to just want to be lazy. I mean, my wife always calls me a sloth, but I'm a pretty healthy sloth. God damn it. And but the whole my whole thing was, and the reason I left traditional medicine 25 years ago was because I stopped believing in what I call the disease care system, where we just push drugs after drugs after drugs, particularly in this country, and where I didn't feel I was helping people actually get healthier. I was just managing their disease, and over time, MD for me stood for managed disease or more drugs. And I really got tired of that. And so, hence, going in this whole direction that I had no idea even existed in terms of regenerative medicine, helping people reverse chronic illness, preventing chronic illness, and living with energy as you do, live more energy mentally, emotionally, physically. And in this way, as you say, and it's so true, it's like, yeah, people don't want to go exercise, or I hate the gym. I mean, I'm not one that personally goes to gyms, but I'm always outdoors hiking and getting the sun. And I encourage people to connect with nature because I feel we've been so distanced from nature and we're always indoors that we've lost sight of what it is to connect to the outdoors. And so, that being said, Anthony, uh, because you bring up that whole point, which is so key for people to understand that yes, you want to be healthy. Yes, you might hate the whole concept of exercise, but that movement is critical. But I'd be curious, like walk me through, like let's say I'm one of your clients. I'm telling you, yeah, Anthony, I agree. Fitness sucks. So What can you do for me to really help me? Because I want to feel better, but I don't know if I want to do the work.
I can answer that very easily. I know you don't want to do the work. The answer is you don't. You don't have to convince yourself or me. You don't. And that doesn't just go for physical, that goes for anything. The problem is that in order to achieve long-term results and long-term health, you have to do some of the work. Now, again, the disconnect here between the stereotypical gyms and stereotypical fitness culture where
Yeah.
it's go hard or go home. It's purely about the physicality. I think that that is a misconception and a big disconnect that we have. I think that the way that I would encourage people to approach this is not just the way that I do things, because I can tell you very simply what I do is I do a client intake form, I find out information about you, and based on what you tell me, then we design a specific program. And the program is going to have something to do with nutrition, something to do with exercise, and something to do with some form of rest, right? And when I say exercise, I love that you said that you're not a gym goer. Good. The gym is not the only way to be active. There are so many wonderful ways to be active that don't include the gym at all. Now, what does the gym offer? It offers you a convenience, right? So
Mhm.
you go to a place and you follow a dedicated program or a dedicated plan, and you don't have to think about much, which is what a lot of people are looking for nowadays. They're not really trying to decipher 20 different things. We already have a lot going on. I don't want to think about the gym. I don't want to think about this. I want to do that. But the way that I kind of do my things is exactly that. You come in and I'll say, all right, cool. So you don't like to exercise. Why? What don't you like about exercise? Oh, I hate the gym. I hate it. Okay, well, in my facility specifically, this is not a conventional gym by any standards. We offer personal training, group training, or the use of the facility. What are you more inclined towards? Well, I don't like working out with people. Cool, so you won't be doing the group training. Do you want someone to guide you and direct you? Well, yes, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Great, personal training is probably going to be the best course of action for you. Yeah, that's too expensive. I don't want to do that. Let's go back down to group training again. Or I'll just create a program for you. It's very individually catered, even though it's in a group setting or it's in a private, whatever. The way that I would follow something or I would encourage people to do this is find out information about the person you're working with. But that goes for any type of business too. You need to find out what the client wants or your members want. So the way that I do my business or my finding out or helping people overcome that struggle of thinking that fitness sucks and that they don't like it at all is, well, what do you like? Okay, how can we make it? Worst case, worst case, worst case. There is no way around it. There's no way to find any joy in it. Then do it because you bloody have to. It just is what it is because it's going to be good for you, right?
Right.
And in my books, I usually use analogies, and I like the analogy of brushing your teeth. You do not brush your teeth every day, once or twice. I'm hoping, because it's such an exhilarating moment, right? You're having so much fun brushing your teeth. You wake up, walking on sunshine. You're not doing that. You're brushing your teeth because you don't want to have bad teeth and you don't want to have oral decay and you want to have a pretty smile and you don't want your breath to stink. In the same breath, you can do some form of exercise just because you have to or just because it's good for you. It's that simple. But there are ways to find joy around it. So I like to try and find the joy, and I like to try and help people come up with methods and systems that works for them. But if not, just do it because you have to and because it's good for you. You know.
No, no, and that's so true, Anthony. Because what's interesting is that, and I'm glad you brought up nutrition because I want to touch on that a little bit. Because what I've noticed with my personal journey, I was in the worst shape ever when I was working in traditional medicine. But that's because we're not taught nutrition in medical school, and most people find that shocking, and they should be shocked because doctors are the worst people to give you advice on nutrition. They really are. Why? Because we're ignorant. So hence my journey into medicine that's regenerative to learn nutrition, everything digestive, and everything that has to do with body balance. And so what ends up happening is that I've had many patients over the years that say, well, I do all this exercise, I am trying to eat healthier, but I'm not losing weight, and or I'm not seeing increased muscle mass. And even though I do work out, I have a gym membership, what why do you think that is? And I tell them very simply, and again, this just comes from my experience now over the years, where it's a situation where I tell them what traditional medicine does not do is they don't look into your metabolism. They don't do the right blood tests to look at levels like testosterone for both men and women, or things like cortisol, inflammation, and things that we're not taught to do directly in medical school, in traditional medical school. And so what I see is a lot of young people who actually are suffering from hormonal imbalances because of all the processed foods that they put in their bodies. And all these processed foods have what are known as endocrine destructive chemicals or disruptors. And so a lot of people are behind the eight ball because they just can't get to that point despite the effort they're trying to put through. And so when it comes to nutrition, though, I'm just curious, Anthony, the sorts of things that you go over with your clients, and so that they don't feel that, burning off pizza or burning off a six pack of beer is a good thing. They have to understand that the type of fuel they put in their body is going to work in synergy with the effort and movement that they put going forward.
Well, let me start by saying that as much as I appreciate you asking me on my perspective of this, I am not a physical therapist, I am not a doctor, I am not a medical practitioner, I'm not a nutritionist, and I'm not a
No,
dietitian. So
that's why I
my
want your
opinion is very much
perspective.
my. I know, no, no, that's right. I just want to throw it out there because I say this to my clients as well. Um, and there is some, you know what? I'll give doctors, medical practitioners, I'll give pill pushers, I'll give them all credit where credit is due. Sometimes there is a necessity for that. I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. I tend to do that. But if you break a bone, literally break it,
Yeah, of course.
there isn't any homeopathic, there isn't any, you are going to have to go to a doctor and you're going to have to get some medicine, and
Right.
that's absolutely fine. I think that the problem is when this has become habit and this is our norm and this is your standard. So the same
Right.
thing goes with food. I tell everybody, they're like, oh, I'm so bad, I had a little piece of cake. I'm like, listen, the cake is not wrong. There is no inherent good or bad in certain food sources. Yes, processed, etc., etc. We try to stay clear from that. We're also human. We're also living in a specific society that primarily offers all these not the best food products. So what I tell my clients is, let's meet you where you are, and let's work from there. So if you currently are having horrible nutritional habits and don't incorporate some of the sensible stuff, water, vegetables, fruits, carbs, fats, proteins, right? Because carbs are the devil. No, they're not. So if you're not even including any of that, let's start with that. It is so funny to me that eating well for your body is considered eating healthy or being on a diet because of how bad we eat. So what I try to do is a sort of empathetic approach to nutrition where I'll say like, hey, it's not bad, it's not good, it's just not conducive to what you're trying to achieve. You have you're overweight or you have joint issues or you have bone problems, whatever, probably not in your interest to not eat vegetables. Can we start with vegetables? Let's start with that. Can we start with some water? Let's do that. Does it have to be hydrogenized? Not necessarily. Would it be better? Maybe. But right now, you just need to drink water or alcohol. As much as I indulge in alcohol here and then, it's not doing anything good for our body. So what I try to do, to answer the question directly, is I try to empathize with the client and approach it from a perspective of, where are you? Where do you want to be? What's the most safe and effective way that we can get you there? And introduce you to these habits and guidelines that will hopefully be in your best interest, because we are really, and by we I mean you and me and people like us, we're really fighting an uphill battle against a conventional standard that has been implemented and has become norm. So it's very difficult to convince someone that eating a vegetable today is not a diet. It's just something that you should do. Like, that's not being on a diet. That's not
It's a
being the
good
healthiest thing.
thing. Yeah.
It's just good for you. And like not drinking alcohol every day because you feel stressed. I don't know, I'm a very strong component of tea. Granted, British and all that, yes, I understand, but tea is actually pretty good and not just like one type of tea. There's many different types of tea. So when I
Yeah.
approach nutrition, I really try to like slowly but surely introduce different things, change habits, because at the end of the day, all of this, as much as we focus on the physical aspect, it's more emotional, psychological, and if you want to be a little foo-foo about it, spiritual. But I'm not really
Sure.
too much on the spiritual, but I do have some respect for it. So yeah.
No, 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 absolutely, Anthony. I mean, you touch on very important points here, with the food matter, because, when I used to be a bad carboholic, I always tell people, look, great carbs with beans, vegetables, fruit, but because our food has become so adulterated, particularly in this country, because the times I've gone to Europe, Anthony, I could eat a baguette, I could eat fish and
You know how many
chips,
people
and
tell me that every time they go anywhere?
Yeah.
It's just a different processing system, and they just have different guidelines. Something like I don't know if you care
Yeah.
for wine, but sulfates
I
are not
do.
legal. Yeah,
Yeah.
sulfate is not legal overseas. It's legal over here. And then you have 3 cups of wine, wake up the next day as if nothing, have two
Right.
glasses here, and you have a headache. And you're
Yeah.
wondering, oh my goodness, oh, well, I must be hungover. Nope. You're just not drinking actual wine. Same with butter, same with, I mean, Roberto, we
It
could go
goes.
here all
Yeah.
day if you really wanted to. But
No, you're right. It's an endless list, and so
yeah,
it's interesting because obviously you and I come across various cultures in this country, and so I never try to guide anyone towards any particular style of eating. It's like you said, just introduce a vegetable, maybe a little bit more often than not. Less and less processed foods, absolutely. And the thing is that what I have pointed out to people is that the two healthiest cultures worldwide are the Japanese number one, and then Mediterranean cultures number two, and they consume the healthiest fats. And that's another thing, Anthony. Like we've been conned into this whole idea
yes.
for 60 years. Low fat has made us the
Low
fattest,
fat,
sickest
salt is
society.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
no, absolutely.
So
And
yeah, avoid the
and
minerals, right? Like don't get your minerals, don't get your macronutrients,
yeah,
don't get like yeah, fuck it, no, no, no. By the way, but if it's okay with you, I'm bald. I'm not used to wearing hats. I was just wearing this to look good and for the title. I'm gonna take this off because I'm boiling.
no, that's fine. No, I just love that. I want to get more into your book in a moment. And my point is that so I'm curious from again from your perspective. In other words, I don't necessarily tell people, oh, you need to be ketogenic or vegetarian, or for that matter, stop eating the foods from your particular culture. My wife's from the Philippines, and the Philippine culture they enjoy pork and rice, and as they say, Coke for Coca Cola. But my point is that there are certain things I would say, look, it's not so much about giving up on your what you like, but introduce other things within your culture that are going to be healthier, whether it be the vegetables or soups, better protein choices, maybe like fish, and healthy fats. And this way, where whatever your culture is, you can actually be healthy within and not feel that you have to eat this programmed way, which to me I never agreed with. And so, but I know a lot of people, like the whole concept of being paleolithic or carnivore or ketogenic. And so when you get clients that come across these kind of conversations with you, I mean, do you favor one thing, one or the other, or any kind of general knowledge?
No, I agree with you. With Asian cuisine tends to be usually on the better side. Ironically,
Yeah,
Filipino cuisine not so much, and then Americanized versions of these Asian cuisines not so much. Off
yeah,
topic, but I
right,
was watching a gentleman who went off to Japan to live, and he was like, "Food here is so bland," and I was like, "Oh my goodness, food is not Japanese food. How dare you?" And he's like, "No, no, no. Actual Japanese food is relatively bland and like really good for you. Like I lost weight just living here. I'm not criticizing that it's bland. I'm saying that what you guys are eating is not Japanese food. What Japanese people eat is very different and very good for you, right? I
right,
say that to say that I don't give anyone any specific advice on what they should eat. I just try to hit them with facts and, again, with somewhat empathy, especially when it comes to cultural issues. Because, like I said earlier, it's more emotional than physical. So it's not so much about the eating the what's the one that the Puerto Ricans like the pork rinds and all that stuff, right? Or it's not
oh yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
eating whatever, like el arroz con pollo, whatever. It's not so much about that. It's more the cultural significance that food has. And
right,
undeniably, food has a strong cultural influence, right? And it's emotionally attached to people. You you go home wherever home is, and whatever you used to get cooked when you were a child, that scent, that smell, that everything reminds you of home. So when you have that somewhere else, it just brings you back, right? So
right,
I can't enforce my ideologies, my mindset, or whatever on anyone. Not nobody has the same knowledge or experience that I do in this realm, and nor are they ever going to, and that's okay. What I need to do, like I said earlier, approach it with empathy and be like, okay, this has, this is really really important to you. How can we maybe change that slightly? So I get a lot of Asian clients, Indian clients who Indian cuisine, as far as I'm concerned, delicious, amazing, not the best. right? If we really, really dissect it, like it has a lot of Indian people tend to have type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes,
Yeah.
and it's because primarily the cuisine, right? And I know I'm generalizing, but let's just go
Sure.
with this example. So to tell someone, hey, you cannot eat that every day, or now you have to adopt the Mediterranean diet when they've never even adopted a Mediterranean palate, is going to be a pretty hard sell.
Mhm.
But if I said, hey, listen, instead of having 10 pounds of ghee when you're making your whatever, how about we make it six? And I know that they don't have 10 pounds of ghee. I'm exaggerating. But what I'm saying is that when people have a strong emotional link with food and their culture or their subconscious, it's going to be very hard to pull them out of that. So I don't try to do that. Instead, I meet them where they're at and introduce small things. So, okay, what are you having today? Arroz con pollo. Can we throw some broccoli in there? Instead of arroz con pollo, can we do arroz con pollo? Because there's nothing wrong with rice, there's nothing wrong with chicken. It's just that it can't all be rice every single day because that's what you really like because it reminds you of home. At some point, you have to be an adult and eat some vegetables. And at some point, you're going to have to adopt certain customs and habits that you're not used to and you don't care for too much, but you know they're in your interest. So that's what I would say, as opposed to say, like, and me personally, I don't, and I'm Mediterranean. I wouldn't say I prefer the Mediterranean diet. I feel like everything has to be to some degree balanced, and balance is going to be ebbing and flowing. Balance doesn't mean we're here. So if you know personally that you have had one too many French fries, it's up to you to sort of shut that down. If you know that every day you're eating ice cream, you might want to reconsider every single day ice. Like all these little things. It's very personal to each individual. So I really try not to enforce my ideologies. I rather say where are they and what can we change within that slowly, progressively, which is not what a lot of people want to hear. A lot of people want, give me results fast. And to
Right.
those people, I have an answer too. Throw up and cry every day. You lose weight really quickly. It's going to be miserable, but I promise you, you're gonna throw up, cry your way into being skinny, which is not the best habit, but still.
Yeah, because in life, obviously, there's different pathways, and from your perspective and my perspective, we're just trying to take them in the most healthy manner to that endpoint. And so, what you're just discussing, Anthony, is so true. And I think one of the biggest differences, or the point I really wanted to make was, what I think is interesting is that we are seeing more and more awareness of fitness. Obviously, we see this on all social media platforms, personal trainers like yourself, gyms. Yet at the same time, it's kind of this weird dichotomy that there was a study that came out of Duke University in North Carolina that 2 years ago, that 90% of the US has an abnormal metabolism. And that's pretty mind blowing. Whether that's overweight, obese, having some kind of metabolic disease, high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, heart disease, whatever the case might be. And so, do you, from your experience and your expertise, Anthony, in the number of years you've been doing this, do you see a trend going in the right direction where people can use these platforms to get healthier, particularly with younger generations, um, and be more impactful, being that that was a real startling percentage that came out of the university?
90% is crazy. That's really high.
Yeah,
I,
90%.
I did not know about this study, but 90% is really crazy. The trend seems to be towards, I would argue, now mind you, I would have to look more into research on this, but I would argue that physically, yes. Now it's trendy to be fit, right? Now it's cool to
Yeah.
be fit. You got run clubs, you got events, you have the gyms, you got all these different corporate environments where they like, I was going to say something, I'm not going to say something, but like, oh, the boxing, whatever, the 90-minute this, the blah, blah, blah. And everybody's starting up with all these cool concepts, but it's all primarily or mainly focused on the physical. Because to tackle the nutritional aspect of this, you're really going to have to go high up. You and me are not going to make a big change on this podcast talking between ourselves and whoever's listening on a grand stage throughout all of America. It'll start a conversation, it'll start something there. There's a fire
Sure.
going, and hopefully more people do this. But this right now by itself is not going to change what's happening at the top. And what's happening at the top, it's all massive corporations for profit.
Right.
It is not profitable to have healthy people. Unfortunately, the American system, now I'm going to get a little out of it, but it's not profitable for the American system, for capitalism, or whatever you want to refer to it as, to have a healthy workforce when the medical system profits off sickness.
Right.
If the system profited off having healthy workers because we're all in factories and everybody has to be tip top shape and we want to have long investments in people, then yes, but we're all capitalist consumers. That's what we are. We're just here to consume, consume, consume. And if I die, it also make I can also be profitable to an organization if I'm dead, sadly, right? With insurance companies and all the rest of it. Again, try not to go too deep into it. But if we want to change this nutritional problem, it starts at some point in the top, or having people like this with small groups of possible influence people, which could be convinced, hopefully, through data, through facts, through everything. A study like that, I'm sure, would be impactful to most people. It's like, oh, I wonder why this is. Why do you think, by the way, I'm asking you directly, why do you think, and I think I know the answer from your perspective, but why do you think it's 90% of this? Do you think it's because people are not going out and walking around, or is it what we're consuming, or a combination of both? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And it's been so when I was doing research for my book 13, 14 years ago, I realized that in 1916 is when bleached flour first came about. I mean, that's over 100 years ago. And
Yeah.
that was destroying people's thyroid and metabolism worldwide. And so the point being is that and one thing I also took note on that you and I talked about a little bit in terms of I'm seeing younger and younger people, both men and women, mid 20s, late 20s, 30s, with very low testosterone. And it's because of all these processed foods and the endocrine disruptors, hormone disruptive chemical, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, GMOs, microplastics. I mean, all these things.
Well, what do doctors prescribe you when you go over and you say, oh, I'm 30, or I'm 35, or I'm 40, or I'm 45, I'm 50? What do they put you on? Oh, yeah, put you on some tests. That's money too. And how many
Yeah,
young kids are on testosterone now? Bodybuilders and everybody who wants to look a specific way. It
right,
is very easy. At 17, I've
right.
seen people at 17 get prescribed testosterone. How?
Yeah.
How are your levels low at 17?
And yeah, and it's having all these hormones being so suppressed because of all these chemicals that we're seeing the emasculinization of guys, where I'm seeing a lot of young guys with zero libido, more body fat, man boobs, they less muscularity and depression, all these emotional issues as well. And so what I do caution people about though is when it comes to hormones, I only use what's called plant-based, which were formulated back in the 1930s. And again, this is not taught in traditional medical school. I had to learn this in regenerative medicine years later, and it's incredible because they mimic our own molecular structure and how beneficial they are to prevent cancer, metabolic disease like diabetes, high blood pressure, and increase energy and sleep. And so, but going back to the original question, hence, this is why we as a society, particularly in this country, Anthony, that we are seeing such impact in poor health due to just what we eat, whether we are ignorant of the fact or we're doing it on purpose, starting our morning at Starbucks, having a sandwich, bread, gluten, all these things. Not that we can't have it once in a while. Of course we can. That's what you and I were talking about. It's not about being robotic, but it's being naturalistic, but being naturalistic and having fresh foods. In fact, in my book, I say it's not about being a vegan or paleolithic or ketogenic. It's about being a fresh fooditarian as best you can, and
Yeah, best you can.
enjoy the junk here and there, so you don't feel deprived. And you and I like a drink, but it's all about doing things. Honestly, I don't even use the word moderation. I say use moderation in moderation, meaning if you want to go for it, sometimes just go for it. Sometimes I have a piece of cake for dinner, but because I've earned it and how I've transformed myself becomes healthy. And most people, they think I'm younger than my age. I'm 61, but it's a thing where it's because I practice what I preach, and it's a thing where I'm very old fashioned, Anthony. Like I'll do my push ups in the morning, very Jack LaLanne, and then do my hiking on the weekends, get my vitamin D and sun, and but it's how I eat because when I used to exercise a lot 30 years ago, but I ate a lot of junk, it wasn't showing. And so, it was about reversing that whole concept of exercise is critical, but what's as critical is what you put in your body to maintain that connection with what you're doing. And so, anyway, anything you want to say on that, Anthony, before?
No, I agree entirely. I agree wholeheartedly. All my constant, like, I'll probably be bored of saying this, is like balance, right?
Yeah,
Moderation is
yeah,
like, and the only thing I'm going to disagree with you, just to disagree on something, is saying that you've earned anything. You don't have to earn anything. Food is food. Like there's no, I don't, and this doesn't go for you specifically, but for my clients, I'm always
sure,
like,
sure, sure, sure.
don't punish yourself through food, right? Don't say like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna have this, because again, you're
yeah,
constantly reconstructing that negative association with food or whatever. All I'll
yeah,
say is, if your standard is, for the most part, I take care of myself, then
yeah,
when you indulge in anything else, you're not gonna feel like an asshole because, well, this is what I normally do. If I go out on a Friday night, which I don't go out a lot on Friday nights, but if I do, I don't feel bad that I'm drinking whatever because I don't really do this that often. If I
right.
go to a restaurant and I order the pasta deluxe with the extra mozzarella, whatever, I don't feel bad because, well, that's what I normally do, which is
Yes,
probably because I don't have this negative association with food, which is hard. I get that. Not everybody's going to have, as a matter of fact, most people, I include myself, don't have a good association with food. I didn't used to have a good relationship with food, not association, sorry, a good relationship with food.
yeah,
And it all starts from within, a lot of sort of training yourself and your subconscious and all this stuff. But again, I go off on tangents. I'm so sorry. What I was
no,
going to add there is that I agree entirely with you. Only thing is that food should not be a reward or whatever. The only reward that you should have is rewarding yourself by healing yourself. Right.
right.
That's all it should be.
No, no, no. And actually, I agree. I agree with what you're saying. And it's a thing where I think the more, or if people embrace a positive attitude towards being healthier through movement, through exercise, through food, it should be a joy going through life. And I always, when people say, well, what kind of exercise do you recommend? I say, whatever movement makes you happy. So if it's going to a gym, if it's dancing, if it's hiking, swimming, as long as you do it consistently. And
Yep.
to me, that's the key. You got to be consistent in both, in what you put in your body and what you're doing in terms of your physical overall fitness, your mental fitness. I mean, I kind of laugh, Anthony, but do you have a lot of clients, or you yourself, do you do a lot of analytics? I know a lot of people have these little, jewelry pieces that give them all these analytics. But the funny thing that I've noticed with a lot of my patients who do all these analytics, they get so consumed with the numbers and the ratios versus what the journey they're going through to make them feel better. And then that becomes a stressor in itself. So I'm just curious what your take is on that.
Um, I like to categorize clients into two fields. Now, mind you, everyone is going to be an emotional client, but I like to categorize them as performance based or emotional based. And I'm going to make very exaggerated examples. Performance based is somebody who says, I have a marathon coming up in 3 months. I have been running for years and I want to beat my time. I did 3.8 last year. This year I need to do 2.8. That's a very specific, that's performance based, right? We have a very clear cut, blah, blah, blah. And my body fat percentage is at this, and my muscle mass is at this, and my fat is at this. And I want to be very specific performance. Good. Then I have emotional. My husband doesn't even look at me anymore. He thinks I'm disgusting. Or I am not comfortable because I can't even pick up my children. Or I went up a flight of stairs and I'm dying. Or I've had this back problem for 5 years now. I went to a chiropractor, doctor, and nothing's healing it. Right? So one could be more performance, one's more emotional. At the end of the day, they're all emotional because even the guy who is so specific about that marathon time has a reason for why. What's that challenge? What's that impulse? What's driving him to do that? But again, so when I have people who are like technology and blah, 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 first of all, none of that is 100%. It simply cannot be. Our bodies fluctuate every single second, every single day that you cannot track. Now, you can have a good more or less. I have an in-body scanner downstairs just right there. More or less, if you are losing fat over weeks, You'll see it, right? Your fat will go like this. Um, but I personally do not care for all the tracking systems. It's very gimmicky, and it's all a sale. And for example, there are very specific guidelines for how to do an assessment on someone, right? So when I get brand new trainers that I start training them, and I'm like, all right, do an assessment on me. And they're like, okay, open up your feet, back straight, hands up. I want you at 90 degrees. Da, 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 da. And then I go, okay, can I do the same assessment on you? And they go, okay. I say, okay, take a seat. Now stand up. Did that hurt? No. Did you feel any pain, aches, troubles, discomfort? No. Could my grandmother do that? Yes. Could a child do that? Yes. Now, can you do that and jump up? Yes. And I sort of simplify it to the point where it's like, I don't need the tracking device to calculate your VO2 max unless you are an athlete and you have a very specific goal. But I want to say 90% of my clientele, 90% of the average population is not an athlete. Far from it, unfortunately. So what do we need all these gadgets and gizmos and stuff if you can't even walk up a flight of stairs? What's your 10,000 step tracker going to do for you? Other than tell you did 10,000. Can you climb up the bloody steps? No? Then let's work on that. I don't need to track your VO2 max. I don't need to track your body fat percentage. Can I? Yes. Do I have the tools and resources to do so? Yes. Do I have the knowledge base to do so? Yes. Is it a necessary component of your program or the average individual person's lifestyle? No. It's just another thing to get you to buy and to get you to, because you buy the watch. Then you got to download the app. Then they're going to try and sell you on the other thing. Then it's going to say, oh, track this, compete against other people. Fun little gadgets, devices, and doodads and toys that we like to play around with that are going to go out of fashion in a year or 2 years. So do you need them? No. Do I care for them? Do I use them? If the occasion calls for it, and if the client really, really wants it. I've come to learn throughout the years of doing this that there's nothing better than getting outside and doing average stuff. Same with the food. You can track your food to the milligram, to the macronutrient. But if you don't even eat bloody fruits or vegetables, what the hell are you tracking your calories for? For what? Honestly, for what? Like, how much value is that providing to you? Now, going off a little bit, and not going to take up more of the time with this question, from a business perspective, and this is why I like to be very honest and upfront with everyone. I talk like the science and everything, but then I talk the business side. From the business perspective, it is a selling tool. If I show you every week that you have either gained fat or lost fat or gained muscle or lost muscle, it's probably going to encourage you to stay on longer because you want to see that, right? So from a sales perspective, great devices for me. From a business perspective, fantastic. Yeah, buy the Whoop, buy the iWatch, get the scale, do the measuring one, and then we're going to track your food, and it just adds more value to me as a business service, because if I tell you, hey, just go outside and go on a hike, do some push-ups in the morning, eat some vegetables, well, there goes my brick and mortar business, right? Now, luckily for me, I'll never go out of business, because the one thing that people lack the most is accountability. So they need somebody to hold them accountable, and people will pay good money for the convenience of not thinking and having to have someone hold them accountable. Hence AI and the tools. But again, let's not go off on a tangent here.
No, but you're right. That's one of the biggest issues, is that the accountability and responsibility to be healthier from your perspective, from my perspective, and what we do individually, and encouraging and trying to inspire and educate people. Yeah, this is the path I'm going to guide you through. And it's interesting because the patients I've had over the years, the ones who track the calories the most, the ones who track their analytics the most, have been some of the most unhealthy patients that I've had, because they distract themselves with a lot of this data. And again, people or human beings are very data driven. They want to see point A to point D or whatever they end up going. And like you, we also had that in-body scan. So if someone's going through weight loss, at least we'd show them, okay, look, this is your BMI, your starting point, your skeletal muscle, your body fat, so on and so forth, and where they are 2 months later. And I think that's effective, because at least they're seeing something real, because a lot of people tend to forget how they used to look, ironically, but we take photos for that reason, and they're like, look, this used to be you. It's like, oh my God. And they want to be in denial about it, but hence so they could see their healthy transformation. And so going to what you were saying, Anthony, the whole, because a big part of you is you have coached leaders, other entrepreneurs, and your whole concept of, and mission for that matter, of if they build a stronger body, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, they could build a better business. And I just wanted, your thoughts on this whole mission statement that you've had in terms of helping people help themselves to help their business pursuits.
So yeah, that's so the first book tackles like the individual, whatever. The second one, which I'm actually still conducting a study on it, and I say study very loosely because I don't have any funding, and I'm doing a very small select group of people, and the requirements for something to be considered a study is so specific that I cannot call this a study, but it's a study.
Sure.
What I can tell you is from my experience, 15 years doing this now. Um, there is a very strong correlation, as far as I'm concerned, between someone's mental, physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual well being or balance and their business as well, right? I find that the best leaders, now there's a difference between uh, owners or bosses and leaders. The best leaders seem to have a good balance within themselves, physically, emotionally, psychologically, which then translates to their business. So my argument is that if you are, or if you improve on your physical and mental wellness, your business will also improve for it. I know it's a bold statement. I even go as far as say that the profit. So I think I wrote it. Performance, profit, and presence will improve.
Right.
And I think it's because if you are physically in better shape, whatever, you're better suited to help others. I like to, again, speaking in analogies, you cannot help someone else if you can't help yourself, right? If you go on a plane, the first thing you need to do, if it's going down, put your mask on before you put someone else. Because if you pass out, what use are you to anyone else? And the same thing was instilled into me when I was a fireman. You go in twos minimum, because if one of you passes out or something happens, you're no use to anyone. You can't save anyone. Somebody needs to be able to be functional. So if your business relies on you, right? You are the catalyst, you are the producer, you are the person. Even if you have a passive role in your business, you are still the owner, you are still the person in charge of this, and you're driving the team or yourself. If you are not in good health or shape, it stands to reason that you're not going to be able to lead or further pursue that option of yours of being the best leader possible, which in turn will also affect your profits, which in turn will also affect your performance. So that's how I envision it. That's my justification for that, and that's my reasoning behind it.
No, it makes total sense. In fact, if you do, I'm just curious if you ask this of your clients, but every time I meet a new patient and during the initial consultation, at the end of it, I always ask them, so why do you want to be healthy? And they kind of look at me strangely. And I say, no, it's a real question because most people don't want to be healthy. And so it's a situation where by answering that question, I'm understanding what the inspiration is, what the inspiration is behind getting healthy. And if it's, oh, because I want to live longer to be for my children or my grandchildren, then I tell them use that emotional connection to inspire you to stick to this whole pathway that we're going to guide you through so that you can end up being healthier and not this kind of walking time bomb that I see based on the blood tests that I do, that a little more in depth than when I learned in traditional medicine. And so I think that whole notion of taking the accountability again that we already talked about and responsibility of why a person chooses to be healthy, I think is critical because it maintains them on their goal and what it is that I want to be doing and seeing myself so that I can have a quality life, see my children grow up, see my grandchildren. And I mean, do you ever get, do your clients ever give you this kind of perspective, why they want to get healthier, why they want to get more fit, why they want to be stronger?
Yeah, I used to focus a lot on the why. Nowadays, I try to use that as a catalyst and as a motivator. But the problem with motivation is that it's a fleeting emotion. Happiness is a
Mm-hmm.
fleeting emotion. Sadness is a fleeting emotion. And motivation, unfortunately, is a fleeting emotion. Today, you might be super inspired. You and I are talking, and you'll go, you know what? This guy knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I should do not just 5 push-ups, I do 50, and I should eat more vegetables. 3 days in, that goes out the window. If your habits and your norm is not what you want it to be, your standard. So I try to build habits. I try to build standards for people to almost make it second nature. Hence the analogy earlier about brushing your teeth. Like if it
Right.
is second nature, that you do it just because you do it, because that's part of who you are and it's become part of your character trait. And exercise is a part of that. And again, not just going to the gym, but if going to the gym becomes part of your nature, then fine, that's what it is. But like hiking, swimming, cycling, running, moving, dancing, whatever, if that becomes part of who you are as a person, then that is what's going to succeed, and that's what's going to develop habits, and that's what's going to get you doing it continuously and develop consistency, as opposed to just, well, what's your why? Because let's say, oh, my why is so that my kids, blah blah blah. Well, the kids are going to turn 18 at some point, and you're going to be sick of them, and you're going to kick them out of the house. There goes that. Oh, my why is because I've always wanted to run a marathon, and that's my goal, and I know that I'll feel better when I do. Once you run that marathon, now what?
Mm-hmm.
If it's not a habit, right? If the why is only centered about the why. So I use that as a catalyst and a strong motivator and a reminder. Hey, you're falling short on this. Remember you told me about the kids and all that stuff? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. All right, cool. Don't let them down. That's a very strong motivator. That's very good, whatever. If you have to bring the kids here to watch you while you do it, fine. It just can't be the only thing. So when I ask someone, why do you want to do this? Whatever that why is, I use it in addition to whatever else is going on to create those consistent habits, as opposed to use it as the one reason for them to do that. So
Right.
I really feel it's important. I just don't want that to ever be their one focus, because once that's done, now what?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, it's like when people make those resolutions, right? New Year's, and it's forgotten after week two.
Yep. Yep.
So, Anthony, is there from your book Fitness Sucks? If someone wants to know what the gist of your message is, what would you say about Fitness Sucks, the book
Fit,
specifically?
yeah, fitness sucks, but it doesn't have to. What you're going to get from that is you're going to get a little bit of a mindset shift. There you go. You're going to get a bit of a mindset shift. You're going to hopefully find different avenues for what fitness could be. I'll give you a little snippet. There's a little section there that says like, if you don't like to do this, try goat yoga. I don't know if you ever heard about goat yoga, where you do yoga with goats,
Oh, right.
right? It's so silly, but it's just there to give you an example that fitness doesn't have to suck. The title "Fitness Sucks" is more to get you in, to kind of shock you a little bit and
Sure.
hopefully make you chuckle as well. And what you're going to get from that is a little perspective on me, what I do, how I do it, and then hopefully change your mind and think, you know what, fitness doesn't. I mean, it sucks, but like it doesn't have to suck that much. And like maybe it's more me than fitness itself. I hold yourself with some accountability, which is extremely hard, but there. And it's a short read. It's a fun read. It's not out yet. It's still going through publishers, and so is the other one. The other one's going through editing. This one's going through publishing. So, but if anyone is interested, obviously follow me on Instagram, all that stuff, and then I'll get an email list going so that when it does come out, it'll go there. But hopefully that answers what the book kind of is about. It's
Well, no,
really
no,
straightforward.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And well, look, as we're getting close to wrap up, I was going to ask you, Anthony, is there anything that you want to say in terms of what your mission is, what you've been doing, helping so many people get healthier? And is there like a take home message that you want the audience to digest?
Not anything that I had planned, but the mission for me personally, as corny as this sounds, is to help develop and empower individuals through fitness, right? And fitness being anything. And that doesn't just go for clients, that goes for the trainers I work with, the entrepreneurs I work with, the people whose businesses I help. So help develop, empower individuals. That is a broad message. Anybody should adopt that, right? Try and get
Right.
yourself away from this sort of selfish mindset of me, me, me. Try and help develop and empower those around you. And then the last message is fitness sucks, but it doesn't have to. It can be fun. There are ways and means and stuff that we can do, and it probably only sucks because you haven't found what works for you yet. And if you need to come to that conclusion and find out what works for you, there's a guy that's ready to help you with that. And there's healing the body doesn't have to be a diet or a huge undertaking. Healing the body can be something as simple as not having processed food or incorporating some elements of stuff. if you really want to know more about that, then you should talk to the guy across the screen from me. He knows a little bit about that stuff.
And by the way, Anthony, what is the biggest misconception of fitness?
I don't know about the big, there's several. One, that you have to look like a Greek god in order to be involved in the fitness space, right?
Hmm.
Like I hear a lot of people telling me like, "Oh, I'll get a personal trainer when I'm ready." What the hell does that mean? You should get a personal trainer to help you get ready. That's like going to a mechanic and be like, "Oh, I'll bring my car back when it's fixed." So why are you here then? You should get your car fixed here. One of those misconceptions that you have to look like a Greek god. Another misconception is that eating healthy is eating healthy. As stupid as that sounds, what I mean by that is that eating in your self-interest is not a diet and is not eating health. It shouldn't be a weird thing. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm not into that.
Right.
Eating healthy is just taking care of yourself. And taking care of yourself should always be a priority regardless. Um, and I know another misconception that exercise is boring or that it has to be boring in order to be functional, in order to be useful. It doesn't. Like you said, there are so many ways. Hiking is a really good example. Get out, get in nature, be at one with earth, world, whatever. Just get out of your house.
And by the way, Anthony, if people do want to find you, what's the best way?
Mm-hmm. Instagram, email, usually, or the website. So I have two websites. The first one is boutiquepersonaltraining.com, and the other one is thefusionhousefitness.com. That is my physical space where I'm at right now. Send me an email to either of those. I respond pretty quick. Or Instagram at boutique underscore personal training, at boutique underscore personal underscore training. Yep, that's the one. And then Instagram, same thing, boutique personal training or the Fusion House.
Okay. But let me ask you this one last wacky question, Anthony. You're dead. You've gone through the funeral. People giving their eulogies about Anthony. What is it going to say on your tombstone? What's that one message you're going to leave on that piece of rock?
Hopefully, it would say something along the lines of, here lies a good person that provided value to the world, as opposed to saying something like, what a dick, we're glad he's gone.
Anthony, I want to thank you so much. It's been a great conversation, very eye opening, honestly. And so people have perspective on health and having enjoy to go through a healthy journey. And so, and I appreciate all the time and all this, wonderful experience and information that you gave to us in your fascinating background.
Well, I appreciate you and I appreciate the time and everything. Hopefully we'll interact with each other more often.